They say there's a first time for everything. Well, in the first 5 years of making videos for this channel, not once have I inadvertently shoved my head under the camera, giving you all a shocking look at my salt and pepper scraggles, until this art project. Oh, I've edited out the worst of it. Just be aware that some intrusive moments remain. There, you've been warned. So no complaints in the comments. I mean it. You know, if this had happened in my 30s rather than my 50s, I likely would have destroyed the evidence and pretended it never happened. Now, I'm tempted to go all, oops, those darn chin hairs are getting out of control again. Hi, I'm Irene, this is Inkworks, and I had a hankering to paint an album cover. Yes, it's another ROXY music one. Avalon, to be precise. One that's frequently found on those best albums of all time lists, and considered a classic of the sophistopop genre. A while back, I painted ROXY Music's Flesh and Blood cover, so I have talked about them before. But I don't want to repeat myself, not consciously anyway. So if you're curious, there's a link to the previous video in the description. The surface is Meaden 100% cotton hot-pressed watercolor paper. The drawing portion was started with a stacking pencil, one of those multi-pack Dollar Tree ones, and finished with a Derwent drawing pencil in the color smoke blue. In my last video, I mentioned being a newbie on the social media platform Blue Sky. So far, it's been good. But I have a question. Why does my feed contain so many kitty cat and pizza pie posts? It's possible those were the first things I liked. I honestly don't remember. Look, I don't know how this stuff works. Maybe they simply have a large group of shut-in cat people who are barely hanging on via DoorDash, and they get amplified due to sheer numbers. But I'm not complaining, because goodness knows there are worse things than being subjected to cuteness and yumminess. Yeah, use your imagination. Ooh, I'm being fresh. You can tell spring's coming. Imagination. Do you sometimes wish yours wasn't so vivid, especially when it comes to dreams? Sometimes they're cool, like when I got to join Cheap Trick on stage. Other times, not so much, like when I was with a group of strangers having dinner with Meatloaf. That's Meatloaf the man, not Meatloaf the entree. Oh, the meal was fine, especially with the free-flowing wine. But afterward, our rock star host sprang his real agenda on us. A super sketch investment opportunity. That's right. Meatloaf tried to fleece me of my funds, but the joke was on him, because I didn't have any. The first layer of gouache was quite thin because I simply wanted to remind myself where the various color mixes were supposed to go. As for values, I had to keep reminding myself that the person and the falcon, along with the strip of land near the top, were going to be the darkest tones. The clouds and the reflections were going to be mid-tone. Below that was going to be a reflection of brighter sky, while the spaces above and below the island would be the lightest. That was a lot for me to keep track of in my head, but I wasn't too worried because gouache, it can be difficult to fix mistakes in watercolors. It's much easier with gouache. On the topic of dreams, the other night I was trapped inside a haunted house. After running from room to room, chased by malevolent spirits, I was finally outside in the spooky woods and had to follow the overgrown path to escape before nightfall. Or else. Nobody told me I'd still be dreaming about monsters in my 50s. To be fair, that's still better than the ones where I'm back in school. Ugh. I realize other people's dreams are never as fascinating as one's own, but that won't stop me from grazing before bedtime and sharing the resultant nightmares until someone offers me free therapy. Producer Mike and I dined another day, this time on hot dogs and canned chili. I'm partial to the Nally brand because they used to be a local business. Way back when I was a kid, anyway. The manufacturing plant in Tacoma was affectionately called Nally Valley. It closed years ago, but the name was bought, which is why you can still find Nally's chili and pickles at supermarkets. I believe their potato chips and dips now live only in my memories. One of my relatives worked at Nally for many years, and we enjoyed the occasional care package full of cans of chili, bags of chips, and big jars of briny dill pickles. I'm not claiming their products were the best, but due to that personal connection, I've been a lifelong Nally gal. When it's time for a steaming bowl of chili and cheese, or a plate of hot chili over rice, or a grilled hot dog smothered with a ladle full of chili, it's Nally or nothing. Because any other brand just doesn't match my childhood experience. The sauce is too sweet, or the beans are too firm, or there's too much chili in the chili. Hey, I'm not entirely uncouth. We've enjoyed homemade chili as well. We've even held a family-wide chili off. But for me, Nally's chili is a comfort food. Plus, when it comes to day-to-day living, it's difficult to beat the convenience of canned goods. Oh man, this reminds me of that time I went on and on about canned tuna. Good times. The name Avalon refers to an island from Arthurian legends. It was supposedly King Arthur's final resting place. Avalon, the album, was ROXY Music's last studio recording released in 1982. It was followed only by live performances from subsequent tours and multiple best-of collections. If you were to compare Avalon to ROXY's first album 10 years earlier, you might think they were from different artists. It was quite a curve from experimental art rockers to smooth and polished crooner band. Although there were hints of what was to come, even in 1972, thanks to tracks like 2HB and Bitter's End. 2HB is especially timeless, as singer-songwriter Brian Ferry's later re-recording shows. The title, 2HB, is code for To Humphrey Bogart. The lines, "You gave her away to the hero," and "Here's looking at you, kid," clearly points to the classic romantic drama, Casablanca. And that's the subtle connection to Avalon, which many consider to be the pinnacle of classy romance. Hey, it wasn't up to me. I was only 13 at the time. But Avalon quickly became the unofficial, mature person's album to make love to. Seriously, there were articles about it. But back to the song 2HB. There's the original ROXY recording from 1972, Ferry's solo cover from 1976, and a version by The Venus in Furs, recorded for the 1998 film Velvet Goldmine. Actually, there are like 5 ROXY songs in that movie. Velvet Goldmine is kinda complex, and I don't want to even try to explain it here. Besides, I nearly said Velvet Bus Line just now, and I flashed back more than 30 years to a bus-related horror story. I'd worked a long shift, overtime even. It was dark already, and as I attempted to board the city bus that would take me home, I stumbled and tumbled on the steps. But that wasn't the worst part. After successfully boarding, all red-faced and settling into a seat, a young woman asked if I was okay, then proceeded to relate her own bus incident where, one time after getting off at her stop, her hand got caught between the doors and she was dragged by the bus for an entire block. Look, I appreciated that she shared her horrific experience to make me feel better, but boy, was I relieved to make it home that night. It's a wonder I don't have more nightmares about public transit. For a post-dinner treat, producer Mike broke open a package of fudge-covered graham cookies, which are entirely too dangerous to have in the house. The main problem, besides deliciousness, is their diminutive size. They're like 1 by 2 inches. They're 2-biters at best. Is it any wonder I'm tempted to dump them all into a bowl and paw at them like popcorn? I used Holbein Artist Gouache. I won't go over each color because I actually thought ahead and left space on the right for paint swatches. You'll see those near the end. But I will point out that I chose colors from both the winter and autumn Iridori sets, as well as a black and a white. For brushes, I used a couple from Princeton's Snap and Select series. Those are what I've mostly been using with this medium. Although, if I get any more brushes specifically for gouache, I'd choose Snap, because I prefer those over Select. Snap is actually one of Princeton's more affordable brush lines, and I think they work great for gouache. Of course, Avalon doesn't suit everyone. Although I appreciate its mood and craftsmanship and definitely rate it 10 out of 10, it's actually not my favorite ROXY album, because my favorites are from 1973 to 1976, when, in my opinion, they were at their most kinetic and artistic. That includes the albums For Your Pleasure, Stranded, Country Life, Siren, and the live LP Viva. My first exposure to the band was when I watched as my teenage brother made a mixtape for his friends. He queued up the phonograph needle, pressed record on the tape deck, and I heard Beauty Queen for the first time. That moment started an obsession that wasn't satisfied until I discovered and consumed everything this band ever created. Yes, even Manifesto. I've since gone through several other musical obsessions: Gilbert and Sullivan, Kate Bush, Mike Oldfield, Prefab Sprout. Strange how they're all British. What's up with that? I'd never really considered myself an Anglophile before, but that would explain my fascination with sausage rolls and Penelope Keith. When it comes to art projects, there are many choices to make: subject, medium, surface, dimensions, style, technique, etc. Well, this subject was on my mind since I'd recently listened to my favorite tracks from this album. I chose to approach this piece with gouache on hot-pressed paper, using a kind of color block style. The completed piece doesn't feel finished, though, and I wonder if adding line work between each color section might have improved things. I'm happy to share this gouache painting session. Interests come and go. Often they burn bright for a while, then fizzle out, making room for the next thing. Although music isn't as important to me as it once was, I periodically revisit past favorites, and each time it reminds me, oh yeah, this stuff is awesome. And if a comet comes hurtling down to destroy our planet, I'll be in the corner, drunk singing Bitter's End. Until next time, stay artsy, my friends.